Okay guys, welcome back. So we're going to make a primary standard solution from a dilution today. And so there's a couple pieces of glassware that you should be familiar with today. We're going to reuse a lot of the glassware, but one piece is the volumetric pipette. Much like the volumetric flask, it has a number written on it telling you the volume. And then there's a line somewhere along the upper neck of the volumetric flask. You'll see a little brown line here. That tells you the 10 milliliter mark. And this particular piece of equipment is called a pipette pump. And this will bring up the solution into your pipette. So you'll notice it has a dial right here. When you turn this dial downwards, it sucks up the solution. It has a little lever here. When you push on that lever, it releases the vacuum and the solution drains out of your pipette. Okay, so I've poured the solution, the primary standard solution that we made from the solid, I've poured that into my beaker. In this case, because I'm not using this for anything else, I've poured the entire 100 milliliters into the beaker. Generally, I would probably pour maybe 50 milliliters in here, and I would keep the other 50 in my volumetric flask in case I need some excess reserves, right? Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called seasoning my pipette, and what I want to make sure of is that the pipette is clean. And so I'm going to pipette a little bit of distilled water into my pipette. I don't have to fill it all the way up. I'm going to remove the pump, and then since this is just distilled water, I'm going to turn this horizontally, and I'm going to roll it in my fingers just to clean the edges. And I'm going to do this over the sink because it's just distilled water. So the sink, so that the pour is going to go down the sink. And then once that's clean, I'll do the same thing. I'll repeat the same step, and I'll do it with my solution. I'm just going to move this back so you guys can see it. I'm going to do it with my solution as well. So I'll place my pump back onto my pipette. I had some paper towel here. Where did I put it? I'm just going to dry the edges because I don't want this to be wet when it goes into my solution, because if it's wet, it's going to dilute my solution, and I don't want that. So step one in this process is I need to figure out how much volume of the original solution I need. For this particular lab, I'm using 10 milliliters, so I use my C1V1 equals C2V2 formula. I know my original concentration is 0.150 moles per liter. I'm trying to figure out how much of that initial volume do I need. I'm going to make a solution that is 0.0015 moles per liter. 0.015 moles per liter, which means I need to dilute it 10 times. Okay, so I'm going to bring up some of my solution. Again, I'm not going to fill the entire thing. I'm just seasoning at this point. So I'm just going to roll the solution like I did before, cleaning the inside of my flask. This, because I'm using actual solution, I'm not going to do it over the sink. I'm going to do it over top of a waste container. Okay, so I've got my waste container over here. I'm just going to pour my solution into my waste container. I'll just clean the tip here. And now I'm going to pipette the full 10 milliliters. So I'll just release anything that's still in there into my waste container that's over here on the side. Perfect. So now let's pipette the 10 milliliters. You're going to want the bottom of the meniscus touching that very fine line to indicate that you've got 10 milliliters pipetted. Now I'm going to draw the meniscus slightly higher than that 10 milliliter line. And then what I'm going to do, so there's the 10 mil line. The meniscus is probably maybe about a centimeter above it, a little bit under. I'm going to pull the tip of the pipette out of the beaker. That'll drop the water level ever so slightly. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this dial in the opposite direction just to lower the meniscus. And I'm going to come to eye level so I can see where the meniscus is. And very carefully you're going to lower till the bottom of the meniscus is on the line, and I'm right there. As soon as I've done that, I'll grab my volumetric flask that I used in the previous video. It's okay if there's some water left in that volumetric flask because I'm going to fill it with water anyways. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to press the lever so that it releases the suction. And this will pour my primary standard solution of known concentration that was made to a high degree of accuracy. It's going to pour it into my volumetric flask. Perfect. I'll set this aside carefully. Excuse me. Clean up my area a little bit. I'll grab my distilled water. From here, now I've got 10 milliliters of very accurately measured solution in my volumetric flask. I'm going to fill again, like I did in the previous time I made a solution. I'm going to fill the flask with distilled water. This particular procedure does not require as much rinsing as the previous. This one's actually quite a bit more straightforward. But still, I want to be very careful that I don't accidentally overfill. So I'm just going to pour distilled water until that bulbous part of the volumetric flask is full. Still going. Once that water level is in the neck of the volumetric flask, then I'm going to switch to my dropper again. I'm just going to lower this. You can still see pretty well there. Okay, now I'm getting pretty close to the neck. So at this point, I'm going to stop using the bottle. I'll grab my little dropper. This is my distilled water. I'll fill the dropper up with the distilled water, and I'm going to go at eye level, adding drop by drop, bringing the water level up toward the fill line. I'm getting pretty close, so I want to go drop by drop here. Now the other piece of equipment, I'm pretty darn close here, the other piece of equipment I can use